Hey YouTube, I am Tiberius and you're about to watch an edited recording of a Twitch stream. You can check out my Twitch using the link in the video description. If you enjoy the content, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel. Thank you and enjoy the video. Oh my goodness. Okay. Table number 1. You need to select a food option first. What? Is it disabled? It doesn't appear to be disabled, but... What is happening? We're getting some JavaScript errors. Presumably... Yeah. Alright, I'm going to refresh the page. Alright, so this site is actually working very well, but let's just see what happens. We have to just load the JavaScript file, which is probably going to be this one. So, if you choose Waffles, it executes the JavaScript function food and passes in the string Waffles. You can choose ice cream. You can also choose both, but this is disabled. So let's go to the food function, which is going to be here. Sorry. Okay, adds a listener. Okay, so it uses the fetch command to post to API order, table number, and food. Okay, that's easy now. So what we'll do is we'll go to here. We'll send this to repeater. Make that a post request. Well, did it tell us what to use here actually? Yeah, application JSON. And then it's going to use this. And it was API /order. So this one requires, because it's not working for some reason in my browser, I don't know if that's just my fault. It required us to read a little bit about the JavaScript. So we need to do food. And the food value. Okay, so the food value is going to be this thing, I think. Let's just order some waffles. See what happens. Your waffles order has been submitted successfully. Okay, what else we got? Let's just try both. Your both order has been submitted successfully. Okay, so I don't think there's anything else to this. So presumably... Oh, hang on. XXE.
Thank you for following. Thank you for following.
So this just couldn't take anything. And it's turning as HTML. I mean, I don't really like the fact that I saw XXE up here. I wish there was some kind of hint that it was XXE. It doesn't appear to be. So I guess, can we... I mean, this probably doesn't make any sense, but let's just try it. Yeah, I mean, Burp Scanner would have done it. I'll change this to text/XML. No. So is it just... Did this one have code? It did. Okay. I was like, okay. That's probably why. I was about to say, like, that would have been kind of silly without code. Extract. Okay. Let's open it in. Let's close all this crap. We don't want this anymore. Go away. Okay. Open folder. Web XXE. Okay, let's have a look at this file. So this is the router file, which I imagine we may come back to, but I think it's just going to handle... Okay. So we have a get API, so order controller. Okay, so we need to look up the controllers. This is MVC, Model View Controller. Very popular when building modern web applications. Basically, you separate your application into 3 different things. Controllers, which handle the business logic of the application. Views, which display stuff. And models, which are kind of an interface to tables in the database. Okay, here it is. All right, so it was application XML. We were almost there, actually. When I did this here, if I'd just done this, yeah. Well, chat, I have done XXE several times on the stream, but it has been a while. XML entity injection, exactly. Technically external entity. It's a bit weird. The second X technically stands for external, which makes no sense. Yeah, it should be XE. XE looks a bit silly, so I kind of realize why. All right, so XXE is a weird thing. Firstly, we need to usually specify the version of XML. So XML is a relatively old language. Because it's basically it's a structure, right? So you can define a structure. You can have these tags or elements which can have values in them, or they can have attributes, right? And they can even include, so instead of test here, you could put another something, right? You could do, what was that, right? Have tags inside tags. So it used to be a really useful data structure. If you ever heard the phrase AJAX,
Thank you for following.
AJAX, which was basically back in the 2000s, that era, web applications sort of went from very staticky. You might have dynamic pages, but you had to visit different, so it would be like index.php, and you had to go to profile.php, etc. Okay, but you had to click on links and load stuff like that. Ajax emerged, asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and basically you could make Ajax-powered sites would make requests behind the scenes using JavaScript and then just update elements on the page. So basically what you see now usually. So you know how sometimes the URL bar won't change, or if it does change, it's got like a hash after it. It's basically using Ajax, except it's not using Ajax anymore because nobody uses XML anymore, because JSON came along and destroyed XML. Because while XML, I mean, you can see, right? I had to make this entire thing to describe the table number and the food. You need a root element. It doesn't have to be called root, but it has to be something. So I had to have a table num tag surrounding the table num and a food tag surrounding whatever the food I wanted, as opposed to that, which is much easier to understand and write. Anyway, so XML, very old. Ironically, though, and I found this out while doing research for my course, XML came after HTML. XML is technically, even though HTML is XML, really, XML is HTML's little brother. Okay, so what are entities? Well, sometimes you want to, for instance, if you have a table, actually, say you have a food, right, which contains an XML special character, right? The special characters are less than, greater than, quote, single quote, and ampersand. Okay, say that you had a food that had a less than symbol in it. If I try and send this, it's not going to recognize what you want to do. All right, this is invalid. So what you have to do is you have to convert this into an entity. So it would be ampersand. It was a less than, so the entity is LT, and then a semicolon. And there you go. Your order has been submitted successfully. Okay? So that's how you would do that. But in XML, they thought, hey, well, what if people wanted more entities? What if they wanted to define their own? And so they created the ability to define your own entities. Let's do something simple. Here we go, this one. So you do this by defining a doc type at the beginning. So after the XML declaration, but before the root tag, you define a doc type, and we're going to call it tib. Actually, it can be any doc type, to be honest. Let's just call it doc. And then in this doc type, you define entities, and the entity here we're going to call. Let's do food. We'll call it food, and then we'll call the food please subscribe, because everyone seems to do that. Okay, so we have created an entity called food, and now if I put food after an ampersand and before a semicolon, your please subscribe order has been submitted successfully. Okay, that makes sense. So this is really useful because it means you can define really long strings, and if you need to use them multiple times within the XML document, you can just replace them with a tag, an entity. This is something that JSON can't do. So you can do this recursively as well. So what do I mean by that? Let's define another entity, food2. And let's say food2 is 2 lots of food1, or food, right? So I can put entities within entity declarations. Okay, so I define the entity food2 as the string comprised of the food entity and the food entity, one after the other. So now if I change this reference here to food2, we get 2 lots. So please subscribe. And as you can imagine, this gets pretty dangerous because you can just keep going. And if you Google billion laughs attack, this is one of those attacks which has a Wikipedia page, an XML bomb. It's a very tiny attack. This is less than a kilobyte. This is the payload. You define the entity lol as the string lol. You then define lol1 as the lol entity 10 times, lol2 as the lol1 entity 10 times, all the way up to lol9. And then you just make a reference. You say, okay, give me lol9, please. So when an XML parser tries to do this, it's going to recursively expand all of these rows, and it's going to take up 3 gigabytes of memory. Basically, the string lol is going to be repeated 1 billion times in memory. And yeah, and the great thing is you could create lol10 here, and then suddenly basically it's an exponential attack. If you create another row of lol10, that's going to be 10 billion lols. Okay, so we're not going to do that though. And you might be thinking, like, why? What? Okay, this is fun, but I don't get where we're going with this. And to be honest with you, XML entities are really good. They're useful. I have nothing against XML entities. I have stuff against the stupid level of recursion you can do. But again, recursion might actually be useful as well, because entities can contain other entities. However, where the people who wrote the XML spec must have been smoking something is external entities. And you define an external entity by just putting the system word after the name. Right? Where are I? And what that means is, hey, this entity is not a string that can be described here. This entity is somewhere else. Where is it? Could be anywhere. But basically, an external entity, the string you give it here, is the location of where the entity value is in the world. And generally speaking, it can accept basically any kind of URI. So it could accept HTTP URLs. Okay. It's entirely up. The XML spec says nothing about how this is processed. It basically just says, hey, the parser can decide what to do with this string. But if you give an XML parser an HTTP URL, it's probably going to make an HTTP request. I don't know if it's going to do this. That's something we could try it. We just have to change this back to food. I guess that didn't work. That's all right. But other URIs which might work are files. File URIs. Which do. So now we have a file. Yeah. And presumably we can just now grab the flag. Flag is just copied to /flag. So sometimes you can actually get directory listings, which you can't here. If this had been Java, Java's notorious. The default parsers in Java will spit out entire directory listings. Okay, so it's probably just flagged. And yeah, there you go. I don't know why it was called Waffles. There was no waff involved. Anyone understand? That was XXE can get a bit complicated. I would definitely recommend going over to Portswigger. XXE. They have some really neat labs. Because XXE can get kind of complicated. Because there are ways to do blind XXE, by which I mean XXE where you don't get this back. Yeah, I get that, Just a Guy, but why was it capitalized like WAF? I was expecting there to be like a WAF. You see, if it had just been Waffles, that'd be fine. But why is it WAF? So yeah, you can get blind XXE. I actually created dynamic DTD, which is a tool you can use to exploit blind out-of-band exfiltration stuff. So it generates the payloads for you. Cool, right? On the screen are my socials. Please follow me on Twitter, join the Discord server, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and of course follow me on Twitch to get alerted when I go live. You can also find all these links in the video description.